A family of 4, full of excitement and dreams, sets off on a road trip through Death Valley, one of the harshest, most unforgiving landscapes in America. The temperatures are soaring over 115 degrees, and the terrain is vast, isolated, and lethal. Days pass, but they are never seen again. No rescue, no clues, just a locked minivan left behind and a profound silence. For 13 long years, not a single trace of evidence was found until 2 hikers, unknowingly wandering off the trail, stumbled upon something that would change everything. This isn't just another case of missing people. This is the haunting tale of the Death Valley Germans, a family whose dream vacation spiraled into a nightmare, leaving a mystery that baffled authorities and the world for over a decade. It all began on July 27, 1996. A green Plymouth minivan, supposed to be returned to a Los Angeles rental company, remained abandoned, buried in the sand in one of the remotest corners of Death Valley. Its occupants were nowhere to be found. The question remains, what happened to Edgar Rimis, his girlfriend, Cornelia Meyer, and their 2 children, George and Max? Let's rewind to July 8, 1996, when 4 hopeful travelers from Dresden, Germany, arrived at Seattle-Tacoma International Airport, brimming with excitement and ready to embark on what they believed would be the adventure of a lifetime. 34-year-old Egbert Rimis, an architect with aspirations too big for his small hometown to contain, had long dreamed of exploring the world beyond the confines of his German city. Traveling alongside him was his 11-year-old son, George Weber, and his 27-year-old girlfriend, Cornelia Meyer, known to friends as Connie. Rounding out the family was 4-year-old Max Meyer, Connie's son from a previous relationship, whose wide-eyed innocence added to the sense of wonder that filled the air. The excitement was palpable as they set off together, eager to experience a new continent, new sights, and new adventures, unaware of the tragedy that awaited them in the desert. Their journey began in Seattle, but the real adventure kicked off once they arrived in Los Angeles. The family rented a green 1996 Plymouth Voyager minivan, the vehicle that would serve as their home and transport for the upcoming days. Southern California's sunny beaches and warm coastline were the first to welcome them to America, and they relished the chance to soak up the new environment, adjusting to the vast differences from their familiar life in Germany. Over the next few days, they explored the area, taking in the sights and sounds of this unfamiliar country. Egbert, determined to make the most of their time, contacted his bank in Germany to arrange for a wire transfer of $1,500 to cover some of their travel expenses. Additionally, he reached out to his ex-wife, requesting further financial support to ease the strain of their ambitious journey. Unfortunately, those funds never arrived, casting a shadow of financial uncertainty that lingered throughout their trip. But the family remained optimistic, focused on their experiences rather than the financial obstacles that would later come to haunt them. On July 22nd, with temperatures in Los Angeles climbing to an unbearable 124 degrees, they set off toward their next destination, Death Valley. The heat on the road was suffocating, the air shimmered like a mirage, and the asphalt seemed to twist beneath the minivan's tires. But the family pressed on, believing they were prepared for the challenges that lay ahead. At the Furnace Creek Visitor Center, they purchased 2 German-language copies of the Death Valley National Monument Museum guidebook, eager to understand and respect the dangers of this vast, unforgiving landscape. These guides were to serve as their lifeline, offering them crucial information about the terrain, climate, and safety precautions they would need to navigate the desert. They chose to camp for the night in their minivan near Hanapa Canyon, close to Telescope Peak, hoping to rest before setting out on their next day of exploration. The decision to camp rather than spend money on hotel accommodations was a practical one, but in hindsight, it would prove to be a costly choice. The next morning, July 23rd, brought a new day, filled with anticipation. The family began their exploration of the valley, their route including visits to several well-known tourist sites. They captured photos with their trusty 35mm camera, documenting the stunning vistas and unique geological formations they encountered. Their spirits were high, and the beauty of the desert, offered them a sense of awe and adventure. During their stop at the Warm Spring mine site, they signed the visitor logbook, marking their journey in a small but significant way. The log entry, written in German, read, "We are going over the pass," signed by Connie, Egbert, George, and Max. It was clear they intended to continue their exploration, but that decision would take them down a path of no return. As they ventured deeper into the desert, they made a fateful decision that would change everything. They came across a route marked on their German map as Mangle Pass, which appeared to be a viable option to continue their journey. However, what seemed like a manageable path quickly turned into a nightmare. The rugged terrain was far more treacherous than they had anticipated, and the Plymouth minivan, built for suburban streets, had no business on such rocky, uneven ground. As they made their way through the pass, it became evident that the minivan could not navigate the rough terrain. Forced to turn back, the family realized they had already gone too far, and time was slipping away. As the day wore on and the oppressive heat grew even more intense, they faced yet another decision. Should they turn back the way they came or continue on in search of a more direct route? Believing they had found a shortcut, they took another risky turn. They followed a path that appeared to be a road leading back to the main valley. This route, known as Amble Canyon, was marked on their map and seemed like the answer to their predicament. However, they were unaware that Amble Canyon had been abandoned for decades. The road they followed was nothing more than an old mining track, worn down and washed out, unsuitable for any vehicle, let alone a minivan. This wrong turn, taken in desperation, left them stranded in one of the most dangerous and remote places on Earth. The sun continued to beat down, and the family found themselves trapped in an unforgiving wilderness, with no way to call for help. The once promising vacation had now become a deadly struggle for survival. The family, with their limited resources and knowledge of the desert, was left to fend for themselves. As the day turned to night, temperatures dropped, but not enough to bring relief from the brutal heat of the desert. They had no way of knowing just how far they had strayed from civilization, or how close they were to finding a way out. Every decision they had made so far seemed logical in the moment, but each turn and misstep had led them further into the heart of a nightmare. With no way to communicate, no map that accurately reflected the terrain, and no idea of how to navigate the harsh environment, the family was left with nothing but hope and determination. As night fell, they were left to confront the stark reality that their fate was now in the hands of chance. But what they couldn't have known was that their wrong turn in Amble Canyon would be the start of a mystery that would haunt authorities for over a decade, leaving behind only questions, uncertainty, and the haunting power of one wrong decision. By the evening of July 23, 1996, the family found themselves trapped in the vast, inhospitable desert with no way to call for help, no GPS to guide them, and no clear path to safety. What had started as an exciting family vacation quickly turned into a desperate fight for survival. In the heat of the moment, every decision seemed logical, but they had veered so far off course that their chances of rescue were slim to none. The family had planned to fly back to Germany on July 27th, but when that date arrived, no one saw them board the plane. The mystery of their disappearance remained unsolved, hanging like a dark cloud over their loved ones. Egbert's ex-wife, Heiko Weber, grew increasingly concerned when neither Egbert nor their son George had returned as planned. She contacted authorities, but the case was immediately complicated by bureaucracy. The disappearance of a foreign family in the United States was a murky situation for authorities. There was no crime scene, no witnesses, and no clear jurisdictional authority to handle the investigation. As the weeks passed, the case seemed to stall. They could have been anywhere in the country, or perhaps, as some speculated, they had staged their own disappearance. This theory only fueled more confusion and raised additional questions. The investigation, despite all efforts, failed to produce any substantial leads. It wasn't until October 21, 1996, nearly 3 months after their disappearance, that an unexpected breakthrough occurred. Death Valley National Park Ranger Dave Briner was conducting routine aerial surveillance when something unusual caught his eye. Something that shouldn't have been there. In the desolate expanse of Anvil Canyon, Briner spotted a vehicle buried in sand, its tires deflated and its presence inexplicable in the middle of one of the most isolated areas of the park. Upon closer inspection, it became clear that this was no ordinary find. The vehicle was a green 1996 Plymouth Voyager with California plates. The more Briner examined the situation, the more unsettling it became. The van was locked, and there were no visible signs of the family around it. The immediate question was, where were they? How could a family have vanished without a trace, leaving behind their rented vehicle in such a remote location? The owners of the van were eventually identified as the Germans who had rented the vehicle back in July. But if they had been stranded there since late July, how could they have survived the unforgiving desert for so long? The desert heat would have been a formidable enemy, and survival without proper shelter and water in such extreme conditions would have been nearly impossible. The mystery deepened, and there were no answers. Briner cautiously approached the van and began searching for clues. Inside, he discovered personal items, luggage, clothing, children's toys, camera equipment, and even full bottles of beer and bourbon. There was also a German-language guidebook from Furnace Creek, the place where the family had stopped to gather information about the park. This was an important clue. The family had planned their journey carefully, but it was clear they had wandered far off their intended path. Even more revealing was the discovery of an American flag inside the van, which had been taken from a remote geologist cabin. This seemed like an impulsive act by tourists collecting souvenirs, unaware of the significance of what they had taken. But despite the abundance of personal items and evidence of the family's presence, there was one crucial thing missing. There were no bodies. The discovery of the van marked the beginning of a renewed search. Investigators continued scouring the area, but the desert was vast, and finding the family's whereabouts seemed impossible. The search efforts expanded over the next several days, covering a large portion of Death Valley. Despite the professionalism of the search teams, no further evidence was found, and the case seemed to be slipping into obscurity. But there was one person who refused to let the case die. Tom Mahood, a dedicated rescue worker from Los Angeles County. Mahood had read about the family's disappearance and was struck by the inconsistencies in the case. He believed that something had been missed, that there was a logical explanation for what had happened, and he was determined to find the answers. For years, Mahood thought about the family's disappearance, the lack of leads, and the unanswered questions. In 2009, 13 years after the disappearance, he and a fellow searcher, Les Walker, decided to retrace the family's steps, driven by a belief that the key to solving the mystery was still out there, somewhere in the desert. They studied the map of Death Valley, using the German-language guidebook found in the van to track the likely path the family had taken. The family had traveled through some of the park's more remote areas, including the geologist cabin and Mangle Pass, both of which were far off the beaten path. Mahood's theory was that the family had been lost and desperate, making decisions based on incomplete information and a lack of experience in desert terrain. Mahood and Walker focused their search on an area about 8 miles south of where the van had been found, an area that had not been thoroughly searched before. They trekked through rugged, unforgiving terrain, following what they believed to be the family's possible route. Against all odds, after several days of searching, they made a startling discovery. On November 12, 2009, Mahood and Walker found the remains of Cornelia Meyer scattered across the desert floor, approximately 150 meters apart. Her identity was confirmed through her passport and bank identification, which they found alongside the remains. But that was not all. Just a short distance away, they found the remains of Egbert Rimmis. The family's tragic journey had come to an end. Their desperate attempt to find safety had led them into terrain so difficult that no one, had thought to search there. The remains of George and Max were never definitively identified, but the discoveries of Cornelia and Egbert brought closure to a case that had haunted the families, the authorities, and the public for years. The case of the Death Valley Germans serves as a tragic reminder of the dangers of underestimating nature's power. The desert is unforgiving, and even the smallest mistake can lead to catastrophic consequences. The family's story is a sobering lesson about the importance of preparation and the need to respect the wilderness. But beyond the tragedy, it also speaks to the strength of the human spirit, the relentless pursuit of answers, no matter how long it takes. Mahood and Walker's dedication to the case, their unwavering belief in the possibility of finding the truth, brought closure to a family who had been waiting for over a decade to finally know what had happened to their loved ones. Their perseverance not only uncovered the truth, but also gave the families the opportunity to mourn properly and begin healing from the heartbreak of the unknown. In the end, the story of the Death Valley Germans is a testament to the power of persistence and fresh thinking in solving cold cases. It also serves as a reminder that the search for truth is not always linear or straightforward, but sometimes requires the courage to revisit old evidence with new eyes. The families, especially those in Dresden, could finally hold memorial services with certainty about what had happened to their loved ones. The case was solved, but the lessons learned from it will continue to resonate for years to come. The Death Valley Germans have become part of American folklore, a tragic tale of a family caught in a desperate struggle for survival. Their story continues to be retold, both as a cautionary tale and as a tribute to the strength of the human spirit. The desert, which had once kept their secret, had finally revealed the truth, and the story that had been shrouded in mystery for so long could now be shared.